So we're on another real estate episode with me and Courtney, and we like to talk about hard deals. And there's always an interesting perspective that our guests have on how they perceive hard deals. And a lot of sentiment lately is about the market in general, whether it's insurance or mortgage rates or whatever it is. And in this conversation with Paul Chiasson, he talks about consumer confidence and how he, even in a difficult market, works on how he can keep his consumers confident on how they can focus on being productive, even in this difficult market in 2025. Check out the conversation with Paul.
So you brought it up earlier about consumer sentiment right now.
Yes.
We've had very interesting last few years and even our current market. So talk to me about, number one, what are you seeing? And then how do you overcome the very, the ups and downs of consumer sentiment right now?
Let me tell you, I kind of chunked that into three categories, right? So the consumer right now, I think lacks a little confidence in the market for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
In our neck of the woods, it's insurance, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm more afraid of insurance than I am of interest rates, right?
You and me both,
as
brother.
a loan officer, right? Especially from an investor mindset, you get into cash flow and is this a good deal or not and that sort of thing. So just kind of chunking it. Let's talk about the refinance opportunity, right? So consumer sentiment right now is I'm sitting on a 3.5% interest rate. I'm not going to lose that. And what does Paul say? Don't, right? There's other options. There's other solutions. But Mr. Paul, I'm seeing my credit card debt, continually go up. Interest rates on my credit card. I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. I'm on a treadmill, right? And I'm feeling, that we're in a cash flow crunch, but I feel like I'm a tenant in my own home, right? Because I got a 3.5% interest rate and I go home and hug it every day, right? But I've got all this debt and maybe my wife lost her job and things have gotten really tight. So from a solution standpoint, a second mortgage is a great option right now, right? Because for the most part, values are still holding. Right. And in some cases, in most areas, we're also seeing appreciation. I've talked to a lot of appraisers and I'm like, are you seeing declining values? And not in most areas, right? Yeah. Not in most areas. So to me, a viable option, a viable solution for someone seeking or talking about maybe refinancing right now, I say use the equity as leverage to get rid of consumer debt because down the road, when rates do go down, and I think we all feel optimistic, right, that they will, you could always combine the two mortgages down the road, refinance, shorten your term. There's options.
Well, and there's something to be said of, let's just say it's a 7% second mortgage,
right,
versus a 25 to 30% credit card debt.
Amen.
Like there's actually like logical math that can be done for it.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said that it's not a complete refinance of your entire loan. You're
That's
still
correct.
getting preserved. The majority of your principal balance is on that first at a low rate.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of second mortgages over the last 2 years. Yes, the rates are going to be a little bit higher on the second liens, but there's some major success stories where we've saved $800, $900, $1,000+ per month. That's like going to your boss and getting a raise, and we're talking net, like what shows up in your bank account, right? And to me, so it's a cash flow tool where you're leveraging equity in order to enhance your quality of life, right? And it's not forever. Right, because you could always, combine those two mortgages down the road,
you could always pay it off
when the rates drop and you just had two more kids. You sell, pay off both those liens, take your equity, and go buy your next house up. Right. Yeah. From a purchaser's mindset right now, affordability is the challenge, right? And I would say to an extent inventory, right? So from a purchaser standpoint, especially the first-time home buyer, I feel like they're with insurance and interest rates kind of getting kicked in the teeth a little bit on the affordability
They're the most
front.
Pressed.
They are, and also self-employed, I find as well. But on the purchase mindset, again, I stress equity. Like right now, what is equity, right? And we go through those conversations. I mean, if interest rates drop to 5.99% in the next 12 months, 5.99, I'm just a little bit, right? Again, psychologically, it's not 6.
Yeah.
It's 5.99, right? You're going to see buyers in droves jumping into the market, right? Because, oh my gosh, I can get a 5.99% interest rate, using that as an example, right? Well, when that happens, it creates buyer competition. Now the seller in this market might say, hey, I need to sell my house. It's been 90 days. I'm willing to pay $15,000 in closing costs and prepaids and put the new roof on so you can get better insurance.
Yeah.
We're seeing that right now, right? But to me, equity doesn't go away. Once you own it, all it does is, if you buy in an area that continues to appreciate, it should continue to rise, right? So from a buyer's perspective right now, it's all about equity conversations, all about the investment, all about creating wealth in real estate. Even as an owner, we're creating wealth. That's what we do.
The most average American, the majority of their wealth is in their primary home.
Absolutely.
And so wealth creation doesn't have to be some outside factor of an investment. Most people's biggest investment is their home.
Absolutely.
And let me make sure you're what you're saying. Were you about to make a point?
Well, I was going to chunk the third sector, and that's from the seller's perspective.
Yeah.
Right. You've got sellers out there that are they have nice homes and they feel like they're priced right. There's a lot of pride and ownership. The listing agent's done a great job of marketing the properties, but they're sitting, right? Yeah. They maybe get a few visits and nobody's making an offer, right? From the seller's perspective, again, they're looking at it like, hey, I'm sitting on maybe a lower interest rate right now. You're going to have those sectors of sellers that are like, hey, I'm just going to sit tight.
I don't have to sell.
I don't have to sell, right? And that's frustrating for a real estate agent when that seller sits back and says, I'm not budging off my price. If we've got to sit here for the next 6 to 8 months, wait till rates come down and we get somebody who's interested in buying at this price. But I would say in general, what we're seeing is sellers that don't understand that there are solutions in place. Like, for example, the 30-year fixed interest rate temporary buy down. That can go anywhere from a 1 year to a 2 year or even a 3-2-1, right? Where let's say current market rate is 6.5%, right? I mean, that buyer can start that process on a 3-2-1 buy down in the 3s. So you want to rate in the 3s? We can make that happen. Yeah. It's going to be a step up, right? First 12 months, step up. But, when we're using the temporary buy downs, I also asked the client, it's very important that we do this, is do you feel that your income is going to trend with your mortgage payment over the next 2 or 3 years, right? Most cases, people make more money over time, right? And in some cases, if they're getting a bonus, they're getting a raise, that sort of thing, all those things will trend with it. But the idea would be it buys time, it creates affordability, it moves product, right? Seller sells, and they can move on to their next step. But it also allows people to get into homeownership and own equity, because equity's the key right now, right? It's not, because what happens is when those rates go to 5.99%, buyer competition increases. Now sellers have options. Yeah. I got 3 contracts. This one's asking for seller concessions. This is another topic, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm not paying the buyer's agent's commission on this one. Yep. And number 3, this guy's not asking for anything and he's asking $5,000 under sales price. I'll go with that one. Yeah. Right.
So what I hear you saying is and somebody had mentioned to me saying it a little different way, when buyers are waiting for the rates to go down, or there's rumors that the rates are going to go down, right? They sit and wait because they're just waiting to see when the rates are going to go down.
Right.
But when that does happen, it may make it more difficult. Even though the rates may be more affordable, you may have more competition market. You may have other things happen that make it more difficult.
Anybody remember 2021? Yeah. I mean, let's talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, 3.5%, woo! There's 10 contracts that go in on a house, right? And somebody's willing to pay $25,000 over sales price with no concessions.
And then people who were limited in what they could do, right? How many of those multiple offers did they have to go through before they were able to win?
You got dreams that are broken.
There's a statistic.
You got a first-time home buyer that puts in a good offer, has a good letter from the lender, feels really good about it. They can't wait. They've told their parents. Yep. And then they lose out on the house.
And how many of them have the stomach to go through that? How many times?
That's right. And you're right about that.
There's a statistic that said that like over 50% of the people who bought a house during COVID are unhappy with the purchase that they made because they probably made.
I haven't seen that statistic, but it makes sense. Yeah, it was emotional.
Mm-hmm. Well, but understand there is another emotion at play right now, which is fear. Yeah, and so people they're still making an emotional purchasing decision by not purchasing. Yeah. But the reality here is so many people say, Courtney, I get this question all the time. Yeah. And I'm just like, the number one regret from the wealthiest, the smartest investors that I know has always been that they regret buying sooner. And that regret it's always a time factor, right? And so I bought my first house at 25. I wish I would have bought it at 18.
Yeah.
Like, I wish at 18 I would have
Looking
inherited
back,
a whole bunch.
right,
We all
yeah.
wish that.
Right.
And why? Because there's so many benefits that come with time.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, I don't care what the market is doing right now, go buy today.
Right.
Go buy, but then buy the best situation for you today.
Yeah.
And so if you are so worried about that you're overpaying, if you're, so in 21, I had a lot of people who were like, should we still buy right now? I said, you know what, go buy grandma's house. Go buy the house that has, wallpaper and like brown carpet that you have a rake for.
You know
what
what's interesting? You bring this up, Courtney. We are seeing a lot of for sale by owner transactions right now. Where grandma or aunt or someone, has inherited a property. We're seeing a lot of that. And for me as a loan officer, it scares the heck out of me because who are they going to come to write a contract? I don't write contracts, right? And so to me, the value of a real estate agent is critical right now in this market. And that's a whole nother topic that we can talk about later.
I think that's a good a good way to end it because I think people appreciate that, and I think it's
No
true.
doubt.
That is the right thing for right now. You got to have people that are on protecting.
One last thing though here. I want to, before we wrap up, these have been challenges. Wrap up your thoughts. How are you overcoming the consumer sentiment in general that is stopping transactions, right?
Correct.
So what are your final thoughts on that?
I take the edge off at the beginning of the conversation and say, you don't have to buy now.
Yeah.
You don't. Mom and dad want to say, hey, son, you've been living in the back since you graduated college and making good money. You should go buy a house, right? I think for me, it's as a loan officer, it's taking that edge off, taking the pressure off of them, and then really asking enough questions to determine their goals and to see if it's the right time. It may not be. We're having some conversations where it is not the right time, but they're feeling pressure because their friend bought a house. They're feeling pressure because their cousin bought a house, right? They're feeling pressure because mom and dad saying, hey, or they're feeling pressure because they're coming up on a 12-month lease if they're renting.
And their rent might be going up because
And
of
their
insurance.
rent may be going up, but that's not necessarily a reason to purchase at that point, right? Now, what's the interest rate on rent? 100%. Right? Towards the landlord, right? You're building landlord wealth in that scenario.
Absolutely.
So I do talk about that, right? You're paying, yes, you're going to go up to $2,000 a month in rent. That's $24,000 a year. That's going to your landlord side of the wealth equation, right? Let me show you what it can look like if you go and purchase a home now.
Absolutely.
Maybe your payment is slightly higher because of insurance and maybe interest rates. But if you've got the right agent as an advocate in your corner and you've got the right lender that can, put together a plan for you, it's got to be a clear plan. You can win equity. And when everybody's diving into the market, when interest rates drop in the next, hopefully 12 to 18 months, right? Yeah. Guess what? You can call me and say, Mr. Paul, you told me about a refinance. Can you remind me what that's all about again? So when everybody's jumping into the market at a 5-point-something% interest rate to go buy a house, you already own equity. You're building your own wealth, and we can maybe now look at refinance rates to see how we can save you money and interest.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Yeah,
I love that.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming, Paul.
Hey, man, this has been fun.
Great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been good. I love having conversations with people who have been doing this for a long time that have seen a lot of stuff because their perspective is different. So I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate the invite, Courtney.
Yeah.
You are brilliant.
I've enjoyed this conversation
Thank you so
with you, man.
much.
Thank you.